Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I'm Agi Keramidas and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out and take action towards the next level of your life. I interview leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week and make sure you subscribe to the podcast to get the episodes as soon as they are released. In today's show, I am delighted to speak with Mary-Kate Gulick. Mary-Kate, you are a 20-year content marketing veteran and also the author of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Real Deal, Get Known for Your Genuine Expertise in an Era of Bullshit Gurus. You are a coach and strategist, helping people build their own expert, consultant and coach brands through the smart use of content. Mary-Kate, welcome. It's my real pleasure to speak with you today.
Thanks, Agi. It's my pleasure to be here.
That's fantastic. Mary-Kate, shall we start? There are quite a few things that I want to discuss in particular about, new entrepreneurs or people who need to make content, and I suppose everyone needs to make content nowadays, but
they do. Yeah, you're not wrong about that.
Can I start going back a little bit? And I want to ask you, during your own journey, your life journey of personal growth, which key defining moment would you pick so that you can set the tone for this conversation we're about to have ahead?
I think that's a great question, and I'm going to pick 2. One of them is a very professional one, where the first time I worked, most of my life was in digital marketing agencies, right? So everything was focused on the creative concept and how we could get it out in the world. That's what we did for our clients. We developed amazing creative concepts and we figured out a way to get it out in the world. And I remember one night, as you know, marketing agencies are very big into awards. And so we were all attending an award ceremony and we won bucket loads of awards for a particular campaign. And I'm feeling very proud of myself, la, la, la. And then the next day we went back into the office, all a little bit hungover, and the client fired us. And we're like, but what? We just won all these awards. We won awards for really great creative execution. What we didn't do was manage to generate the revenue that we should have generated with those campaigns. There was really good creative. It was lots of fun to look at, but it didn't do a darn thing. And so at that point, probably for the first time, it occurred to me that, hey, I'm not making art here. I'm here for a reason. And the reason that I'm here is to help these people generate income so that they can have a better life. And I was so ashamed that I had missed the boat on that for so many years and for so long that it really changed the way that I looked at client works from then on. And not only that, it got me out of the agency world pretty quickly thereafter, because the whole culture is so built around concept over conversion, essentially. So it's just isn't something that I felt like I could continue to contribute to. So that put me out of the game there. And the other pivotal moment, and this is going to sound ridiculous, is when I finally learned how to win at Scrabble. Are you familiar with Scrabble, Agi?
Yeah, the board game.
Yeah, my husband and I are both word nerds and we love Scrabble. And so we would play and he would clobber me every time. He would just clobber me at Scrabble. And I don't enjoy losing. It's not my favorite. So one day, about 10 years ago, we were playing during the Super Bowl, which is, American football. I don't care about football. I care about the commercials. So we would always watch the Super Bowl just to have the commercials on. And in between commercials, we would play Scrabble. And that day, I figured it out. It does not matter what word you are spelling. It matters where you put the letters. That is how you win that game. And forever, I was trying to come up with the most interesting words that used an X or used a Q, and not paying any attention to the fact that it has literally nothing to do with how good your word is. It has everything to do with how those letters are positioned. And it's like the floodgates opened. I have since never lost a game of Scrabble to my husband. And that same philosophy is absolutely true when it comes to not just content development, but building a personal brand. And when entrepreneurs get started and they're trying to get known in the world, getting known for what they know best, the actual content you create is not as much of consequence as it is where you put it, who you are putting it in front of. And so frequently, the focus is on what we're creating and not who is using it and who is getting value from it. So my goal with everybody is really to start out with who are you serving? How are you helping them? And then how can you actually do that in a sustainable way? Let that dictate what the outcome is. Don't put the deliverable first and figure out, work backwards from there. Figure out who's going to use it and who will benefit from it and how you can actually get it done without killing yourself, and let that tell you what it is you're going to create. All of that from Scrabble, and because I'm hyper competitive.
Funnily enough, about Scrabble, when I lived in my home country, Greece, I was quite good at it. In my native language, I tried to play a couple of times in England, and I wasn't equally good. So I think there is something to do with the way that my mind structures words. But
that's quite possible.
But I like very much your analogy about it's not how complex or how sophisticated the word that you put is exactly where on the board you put it and where, so that it maximizes the value of its letter.
Exactly.
And we're going to talk about content and creating content in a moment. Before I do that, Mary Kate, I want to ask you, because you say that your favorite clients are entrepreneurs and small business owners who are building a brand based on their own expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what about this particular niche draws you? What is it exactly that you enjoy the most about working with these kinds of people?
So many things, Agi, but I think the thing that most attracts me to them is that not only are they starting from scratch, so they have the potential to do it right from the beginning, which is amazing. Working with established brands is really the challenge it presents is you have to bring all of the baggage and all of the mistakes that have come along with it, right? But even beyond that, these are people who have had, in one way or another, some kind of revelation in their life that they need to be serving the world in a way that's really profound and that matters to them. And the joy that brings me to be able to support that is far and away more than it is to support, just increasing revenue for a large corporate company or teaching people how to trade options, which is what I used to do. Like those things are all fine and good, but I just get such a significant sense of satisfaction working with people who are working to change the world and who are working to genuinely serve people with what they know. There's really nothing better than that, especially, so many of the people I work with have, very much like me, have had corporate jobs for most of their lives, and they're deep in their areas, right? Like they know their stuff better than anybody. And their goal more than anything is, look, there are people who need to know this because it could really help them. I just don't know how to get them the information in the best way. And it's like, great, I can help you figure that out. And it lets them serve and it lets them change families and individual lives and businesses for the better. Can you really think of a better way to spend your time than working with people who have that on their mind?
I agree with you. And what you said about the people working with people who set out to change the world with their idea, with the service, gives immense satisfaction when you see that you contribute to their success. I'm sure, Mary Kate, that working with these kinds of customers, you have come across many times the common mistakes, shall we say, or errors that people who start a business do. And I saw someone that somewhere that you offer because I like checklists like that. So, do you want to share with us some of the common things that people who start a business should have known or should know, or maybe errors that they repeat, maybe so we can help someone to avoid some of the the very common ones.
Yeah, I mean that makes it's perfect sense. When you start a business of your own and it's your first time doing it, it's all new, right? You don't know. There's so much you don't know. And two of the big mistakes I see, one is trying to do too much, and two is trying to do things perfectly. And the first one, particularly when it comes to content, trying to do too much. This idea that as an entrepreneur, I particularly work with coaches, consultants, advisors, people like that, that they have to be everywhere. I have to have a Facebook group that's bumping. I have to have a good Instagram following. I still have to be on Twitter and engaging with journalists. I have to have my own podcast and I need to write a book. And it's like, whoa, let's take it back a little bit. And I guess this goes back to kind of my corporate upbringing. Are you familiar with kind of agile methodologies of software development and project management and things like that? I mean, it made up a lot of my professional development life. And so what I'm consistently counseling on is don't be in all the places, be in one place. Pick one platform. We're not going to go broad. We're going to go deep and find your audience on one platform. For a lot of coaches, that platform is Instagram, simply based on who they're working with. Then we're going to go deep there. We're going to explore every possible avenue there for your content and figure out what connects you to more people. Because what is our job, as we're trying to build a business? It is to find our people and to talk to them. And that is it. Like, it is not more complicated than that. We love to make it more complicated than that. Because frankly, that makes it so that we don't have to talk to our people. It gets us out of sales calls if we're constantly building systems and creating these complex marketing plans. But one platform, find your people and talk to them. And that allows you to learn as you go. And each thing you learn, you kind of iterate your plan as is done in, a standard agile system. So put something out into the world imperfectly, see how your people respond to it, and adjust based on that. And when you feel like you've really dialed in your message on that one platform and you've found a way to attract the kind of people that you want to work with to you, from there, you can expand to another platform. But what happens, Agi? I mean, you know this, you're a content creator too. If you start, I'm going to write a book and have a podcast and be on all the platforms, how fast do you burn out? And then suddenly you're not a coach, you're not a consultant, you are a content creator, and that's it. And it's an unrealistic expectation that I feel like, as much as I love him, the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world have kind of put on people, that they need to be omnipresent. And omnipresence is not where you start, it's where you build to. So never compare your start to someone else's finish. And then, of course, the second thing is the idea of putting perfect things out into the world. Perfect things are dumb and boring, and they take a long time to create. Put an imperfect thing out into the world fast as you can. The quickest thing that serves a purpose. That's one of the reasons I love Clubhouse, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm kind of a voyeur on Clubhouse. I do a lot of listening there, but it's just people being like, hey, here's a thing I want to talk about. I'm talking about it. It acts very much like we wanted social media to act originally. It's very, it can be so off the cuff and unplanned. And I really love that about it. And people are getting immediate response to it. They're able to see immediately what's resonating with people and what's not. The same is true within your Facebook group or with your Instagram following or on your podcast. Try something. Try it for a little while, see how people respond to it. You can think about it forever, and you'll never know how people are going to respond to it until you put it out in the wild. So put it out in the wild. I mean, I've seen people agonize about their email campaigns for 12 weeks. And it's like, in those 12 weeks, you could have literally put out 144 emails, and then you'd have all of this information to go on based on how those performed. And now you're still just in your head thinking about how to make it perfect. And all that's done is slow down your learning. And that's no good for anybody. So my big thing is do it imperfect, do it fast, and get it out into the wild, because that's the only way you're going to know.
100% agree. And the imperfect and fast, fail forward, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other thing? That version 1 is better than version 0.
That's it. Done is better than nothing.
Absolutely. Mary Kate, let's talk a bit more about content creation then. And the first thing I wanted your thoughts on is I saw that you talk about 4 mindset blocks that keep entrepreneurs from putting ourselves out there with the content creation. So, do you want to walk us through those blocks, and maybe what is there any solution, something they can do to get over them?
Sure. And I'd actually be really interested in your take on these as well, because I feel like they're somewhat universal, especially as you're getting started. So as a content creator yourself, I'd be super interested in your thoughts. We've touched on the first one a little bit, which is perfectionism, right? This idea of I can't put anything out into the world until it's absolutely buttoned up and shined to a high gloss, because it reflects upon me. And if we think about what that is, sure, people want to say it's their commitment to excellence that's causing them to do that. It's not. It is a fear of being visible and a fear of putting something out in the world, and to pretend it's otherwise is simply delusional. And so I asked, if you are sitting there looking at your 12th version of, one post that's going to go out, perhaps ask yourself if you might not be caught in this mindset trap. Perfectionism, it hits us in many walks of life, but I feel like in content creation for an entrepreneur in particular, what you're doing is putting yourself out in the world. And it's a scary thing, and it's okay to acknowledge that. But the key is be scared, do it anyway. It's the only way we learn. So perfectionism is one of those things. Is this something you've ever struggled with at all, Agi?
I used to, not
Good.
anymore. Not anymore. I now my mantra is that prolific is better than perfect. So
I love that.
yes, but I can relate. I used to be I think that perfectionism is a very good code word for procrastination.
That's a
It
perfect way to say it. And
yeah.
procrastination is the
All
second
right.
one. Because I mean, we talk about procrastination always, and I am a expert procrastinator. Like nobody's better at procrastination than me. Like I will clean out a closet and bake, 6 batches of cookies if there's something that I'm afraid to do. Not anymore, but I used to call it procrastinating. Like my husband would be like, wow, look at these great cookies. And I'd be like, thanks, I was procrastinating. I was supposed to write a chapter of my book, but instead cookies. So procrastination is something we always talk about, that it's a bad character trait. It's almost a moral failing. It's a lack of discipline. And that's not true. Procrastination serves, frankly, a critical purpose for us. We get something from procrastinating, and what we get is a wonderful, very effective layer of self-preservation. Um, as somebody who has been a professional content creator for 20 years, I knew exactly what it meant to procrastinate for my deadlines. If something was due in 2 weeks, then I would do it the day before. If something was due in a month, I would still do it the day before. And when I kind of started unpacking that, it was more about, I'm going to do this. And I'm doing it on the fly. I only have a day to do this. So it's not going to be my best work. And if people don't like it, that's okay, because it's not the best I could have given. It's not really me. It's me in a rush. So if it fails, I don't feel the pain of it. And if it succeeds, bonus, right? It really mitigates all of the vulnerability out of the situation. And so we do the same things even with self-imposed deadlines. Okay, well, I'm just going to rush it out there, and I won't work on it as I should. I'll just rush it out there, and then if nobody likes it, well, I had no time, and it's fine. We've again found a way to keep ourselves protected from rejection. But I really ask people. One of the things that I work with my clients on is it's not quite a no procrastination rule, but we work on specific timelines, and we talk a lot about time discipline, not as a kind of punishing practice, but as a habit development, because even spending the time doing something that you don't finish, saying, I am going to take these 90 minutes and this is all I am going to work on, is this focused thing. If you do that even 4 times a week, you are 95% more productive than virtually any other human being. I mean, we do not do focused work. So that's one of the things I teach is focused work, but that's more of a tactical thing. For the mindset, it comes back to the same thing as perfectionism. Like you said, Agi, it is fear of putting yourself out there in your truest form, of really spending the time on something to do, to give it your best go and put yourself out there in a way that you can be soundly rejected. What if people hate it? So what I ask people to do is say, what if people hate it? What's the worst case scenario here? Somebody gonna come burn your house down? No, they're not. Are they gonna murder your family? No, they're not. What's gonna happen here? Are you gonna be homeless? Oh no, what's gonna happen? And getting into these kind of ridiculous scenarios. And the truth is, the worst case scenario is I'll feel sad. Have you felt sad before? Yeah. How have you gotten past that? And this idea that there's no real concrete consequences to putting something out there that doesn't land the way you want it to. All you do is learn, which no matter what the worst case scenario is, that's what it is. And the worst case scenario really ends up being like a couple people won't like me and I'll feel sad. So kind of getting realistic about what that looks like and how you get over being sad, which is how you've gotten over being sad every other time in your life you've been disappointed.
Yeah, I think with procrastination, it gives us valid reasons for excuses, to give excuses to ourselves and not do the things. And I also think that, when you have, we tend to procrastinate, and I might generalize in this, but I think we might tend to procrastinate more on things that somehow we don't deem as valuable. Maybe they are, but we haven't really understood their value in us, or the why, the reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we know what we're doing with clarity and we know why we're doing it, that kind of pulls us. We don't procrastinate. There is a clear direction and a clear reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's when these things become vague, and then you kind of put things off. And yes, of course. And I think, who can't relate to that?
Yeah. Who can't relate to that?
Yeah.
I think too that the opposite end of that though, Aggie, is when you do see the value of it and it's a significant value and like this could be a big deal. Like there's suddenly it becomes very easy to procrastinate that because it's a little bit terrifying. It's just that, self-awareness of recognizing and being okay saying, you know what? I am having fear right now. I am afraid of how vulnerable this is going to make me. And that's fine. It's good. Good to know that. And I'm afraid of a lot of things, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. And our unwillingness, I think, to admit sometimes that's, and just to be in blissful ignorance of the fact that we're scared, is kind of what keeps us from making any changes. We just kind of la-di-da and say, I don't feel like working on this right now. That's not what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Shall we carry on with the third one then?
Sure. And my third one is, okay, so Agi, are you familiar with Harry Potter?
Who isn't?
Who isn't? I don't know. Somebody isn't, and one day they're going to say, "No, tell me about Harry Potter." And I'll say, "I'll tell you about Harry Potter because I'm more into Harry Potter than a grown woman should be." So, one of the things that I see in a lot of my people in Harry Potter in the first book, he is taken away to a lighthouse by his aunt and uncle to hide him from Hogwarts, who is trying to get a letter to him. And while they're away in the lighthouse, Hagrid comes around. Big, huge dude with a beard comes around and changes Harry's life, upends Harry's life completely by saying, "You're a wizard, Harry. Like everything that you've experienced before was just preparing you for this moment where I tell you that you're super duper special and that your whole life is about to change." All of us who read that book when we were children, teenagers, or adults had a very fondness for that, a very fond place in our hearts for that moment. And the idea that, I kind of want Hagrid to come and tell me I'm a wizard. And when it comes to content creation, what I hear from a lot of people I work with is, well, nobody recognizes me as an expert yet. So I really shouldn't be putting this out there until I'm more recognized, or I haven't built an audience yet. So I really like, they don't feel that they have permission to share legitimate expertise until someone deems them special, until Hagrid comes along and says, "You're a wizard." And then from that moment on, it's understood that they are special and that they have the right to say these things. And this one, there's no concrete kind of, the best way through it is to acknowledge it. Like, who are you waiting for to give you permission to tell what you know? You build an audience by providing value, by being of service to people. And you can't be of service if you're waiting for people to give you permission to say that you're special and that you're worthy of their time and their presence. So again, that one, it's so funny because I got into this to help people create content, and I feel so frequently like we end up talking about, you're a real expert. You know this better than anyone. Why don't you believe that you have the right to share what you know? And again, of course, it comes down to fear, but it also comes down to this idea that people are going to think I'm a fraud, the imposter syndrome thing. And so they wait for this metaphorical Hagrid to say, okay, you've hit that point. You are officially worthy and we are willing to listen to you. It's like people are willing to listen to you after they hear what you have to say, not before. So that's one of the things we need to work through. And finally, the fourth is this belief that you it ties in with Hagrid syndrome, and it's called who the hell am I? I'm just a regular lady from Nebraska, and I'm a mom from Nebraska. I'm not special. I'm not a supermodel. I don't have a movie. I'm not this, I'm not that. Why would anyone listen to me? And the idea that they feel like big old phonies. And it's a little bit different than imposter syndrome because it's less that they're afraid people are going to call them out. It's more that they believe that they're pretending, that they believe that they're just, you know, I had one client say to me, and I just wanted to grab her by the face and kiss her on the head and be like, "You're adorable. And what is wrong with you?" She said, I'm not comfortable with you calling me an expert. Can we say something like specialist? How long have you been doing this? 17 years. Mm-hmm. And it was just like she literally knew everything. She had all the credentials. I'm just not comfortable with that. And it's this unwillingness to acknowledge our own power. And I don't want to generalize either, Agi, but I more typically see this with women than I do with men. This idea that I'm getting too big for my britches if I say, yeah, you know what, I know this better than anyone else, and you should listen to me because I'm smart and I know what I'm talking about. That there is this resistance to saying that because I will be unlikable and unlovable and abandonable. So it's even less like I don't want people to think I'm a fraud. It's I don't want people to hate me for stepping out of my box. And that is one of the bigger ones, is saying, no, before we can do any of this, you need to acknowledge that you know what you know and that what you have to offer has significant value. If you can't see that, and if you don't believe that what you have to offer is worthy, does not matter what content we create. It does not matter what we do. So you need to know what a powerful being you are. So that is another thing that I never expected to have to work on with people, that we work on all the time.
Yeah, they say, if you don't believe in yourself, why should anyone else believe in you? And you were saying there were some thoughts that came when you were talking about the expertise and the imposter syndrome. And I can relate to that, and I bet that others can.
For
The thing
sure.
with I've heard that as well many times now. I remember people who had said something similar, and myself included in the past. I was reluctant, shall we say, to use. The first time someone called me expert, I kind of took a screenshot and I thought, wow, someone is telling me an expert. It's the thing with the expertise is that there is not a clear defining line that you say, okay, now that I've done this, I am an expert. So it's it's completely subjective. And I think if you know more than most people do, then in a sense you are expert. I remember there was a notion that said if you read the 5 best selling books on a topic,
Mm-hmm.
you read 5 books on a topic, the 5 best books on a topic, then you have an understanding good enough to be able to teach it, to be considered an expert in that topic, because who else has read 5 books about that? So you can teach people. So it's, I think the term expert and the reluctance to accept the fact that we're expert on something that we are we are so good that we do it, unconsciously. It's that
Yeah.
unconscious competence that we have in something, and sometimes it takes some other person, a coach or someone, to point that out to ourselves and say, "Oh, yes, you're right. I mean, I I know more than I credit myself for."
Totally. And that unconscious competence that you brought up is such a tricky thing because it brings with it this idea of, well, anybody can do this. This is nothing. It's so I'm like, no, dude, it's easy for you because you know it so well. And so having to unpack, like, believe it or not, you have a thought process that you go through. Let's figure out what that is. But no, you're exactly right. And I mean, I think the other bit of reluctance to claim an expert label comes from, and I'm just going to be completely honest here, is this kind of proliferation of self-proclaimed gurus who have, basically, I took an Instagram class and now I'm a business coach. And it's like, wait, what now? You've never run a successful business. How is that a thing? So I think that there is this real desire to not be associated with what I call a fake guru, right? And let's not pretend they don't exist because they definitely do. So if you're coming from a place of service, if what you know really will help people achieve their goals, and if you know it well enough to teach it, you're an expert. And for some people, it means that they have, a master's degree and a PhD. Some people, it means that they have 20 years of corporate experience doing this thing. Some people, it means that they've informally been helping friends, family, and referrals for years without, claiming that they're a consultant or a coach. And they have those people to say, yeah, this really, really helped me out. This was amazing. And that is the best kind of expertise, is when you actually have people who can say, no, it's legit. She knows what she's talking about. And it totally helped me. So being able to kind of put it in those frames, because I think a lot of people get caught up in kind of the traditional credentialing that goes around with expertise. And it's sure, there's value in those things. I'm not saying there's not, but they're not requirements.
Not
And
anymore.
Not anymore, which I love, to be honest. But real world experience and real world transformation is the best proof of expertise you ever need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the model of this education, or the need to have masters and PhDs and things like that, is changing now. And if you haven't done it, doesn't matter how many degrees you have, if you only know about it theoretically.
And especially because those things are so, they're not accessible to everyone. There are significant barriers that are unjust, that keep people from accessing those kind of credentials. So the fact that the field has opened so much and that you can learn so much than you ever could before. And let's be honest too, I know lots of PhDs who are completely useless. It's that real world experience and the ability to show a result is what matters.
Yes, absolutely. Mary Kate, let me ask one more question to wrap things up about the content creation, and that was the so-called routines for content creation. So can you give us an overview of what is that approach for someone to start posting content in a routine way? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, great question. So one thing that I tell my clients is any content strategy that you're not going to execute is not a content strategy that we are going to use. And what I mean by that is we'll so frequently be like, okay, I'm going to post 6 times a week here and 4 times a week here. And And guess what? It doesn't get done. And then you feel bad about yourself and then you don't do it again next week. So what this kind of comes back to our Scrabble conversation, right? That we're going to talk about who we are trying to get in front of. And then how we can, what is the easiest, fastest way to get that done? And then we'll talk about what that output is. So what that ends up meaning for a lot of my clients is it ends up being each week, I want you to create one piece of content. And then I want you to repurpose that in a couple different ways that week. So I would like you to spend about a half an hour on your content. That's what I want. And I think that when we get it down to that kind of minimum investment level of time, that allows them to start building a habit. And it doesn't mean that 6 months from now, they won't be spending quite a bit more time, but they'll build that muscle gradually. But I'm not one to throw people in the pool and say, all right, you're going to create all this stuff. Essentially, for you have people, I feel like how you're either a Rolling Stones person or a Beatles person is the same. It's the same with this. You're either a speaking person or a writing person. And for my speaking people, I say, great, let's go to where your audience is. If Instagram's your platform, great. If Facebook is your platform, great. And let's say that it's Facebook, you're going to go into your group and you're going to do a live every week. You're going to talk about this topic. This is your topic for the week. So they go in, they do their live. That's it. Then the transcript of that live, they can take a couple quotes and post some follow-ups on that, some little engagement follow-ups, and they can do that right after the live goes out. And then they have spent 30 minutes doing that. That's it. But the idea is that they can do that little thing every week, and it's not this whole big chunk. So really starting with workflow and what's executable. And then when we expand, we say, okay, great. And we're going to tack a call to action on that. And then at the end of the week, you're going to go live again, and you're going to say, you've learned all this stuff. If you want to learn more, here's what you do. And that's what we're going to sandwich the week. We'll start with a live, we'll end with a live, and in between, you're just repurposing. And then we get them in a place where they have deep engagement. And then if we want to build from there, we can. But we start with building blocks. We find something that works. We build on what works. I always say we find a unicorn and then we make baby unicorns out of it. So we don't need to get a bunch of horses. We need one unicorn, and then we need to build on what we have. So that's really what we focus on. And it does get very tactical, Agi. There's some spreadsheets and Trello boards involved just to make it incredibly clear. Because the other thing that people talk about is the deep sense of overwhelm at just navigating the entire social media and digital content landscape. And it's like, nope, we're not having it. We're not having overwhelm. You're going live once a week, or you're writing a blog post once a week, or you're doing a podcast episode once a week. That's the only thing you're creating. Everything else, you're just pulling bits from that, and that's it. So that's really my strategy, is to get people to start building that habit, building that creation muscle, and then we can look at expanding. But let's start small.
That's fantastic and very practical piece of advice, and useful, I think, to many people. Mary Kate, I would like to ask you also some quick fire questions to start wrapping things up. So first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. It means to me that I left the day better than I started it. I know more today than I did yesterday.
That's brilliant. It is a daily process indeed for life. Yeah. And let's say you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self. So what's the advice that you would give her?
You don't need to be perfect. Just do the thing. That's the advice that I would give her. Just do the thing. So much time wasted fretting about things that I wanted to do that I was afraid to do, and just do the thing.
Similar hypothetical question. If you could wave a magic wand and change something in the world as it is today, what would you change?
Wow, only one thing. I think because I'm practical, I would make sure that basic needs like food, water, shelter were never a question for anyone, and that everyone had that essential baseline. There is so much human potential squandered. simply because people have to walk 8 miles to get fresh water, because you're hungry and you can't do good thinking when you're hungry. And I mean, think about how many millions of people in the world could have such a remarkable impact and create such unbelievable and unfathomable things, but they can't because we can't even get their basic needs met. So I'm just like, if we could just have basic level subsistence for everybody, and so that we never had to worry about those basic things, just think about what we as a species could accomplish and how remarkable the world could be.
That's beautiful. Mary Kate, emerging from this conversation we had, so if you were to give to the listener one actionable item, something they can start implementing straight away, which one would you choose to tell them?
I would tell them to decide if they are a writing person or a video person, and then one piece of content per week that they create. One platform, one piece of content. And then worry about what happens next. But when you get consistent with that, then we'll talk. But just one thing.
Fantastic. One more question, a quick one. Do you want to share with us a breakthrough, an aha moment that you had recently, something that made an impact?
I was working with a client on her book, and one of the things that we dove into was the idea of how our story, our own personal story, cannot be extracted from the teaching that we have to offer people. We were trying hard to structure things in a very, linear way. And it's like, well, we'll put your story here, but then the teaching goes here. And we couldn't make it work for the life of us. And then it occurred to both of us at the same time. No, these things are so intrinsically tied together that there's no possible way to separate your story from the teaching. And it didn't just change the way that we structured her book. It changed the way that, that I think about my teaching too, because it's always been my tendency to kind of remove myself from the facts that I teach. And it's simply impossible. It's simply impossible because it's all informed by experience. So I would just encourage people to embrace their own story and all the messiness of it, because people learn through story, and they learn from you and from the experiences that you've had. And so sharing those things is just as powerful as sharing the strategies and the tactics and all of that stuff. Not a massive aha moment for other people who are smarter than me, but for me, somebody who likes things in clean buckets, that was a big one.
It's big for me as well, because I've been always a fact teller, and I only recently realized the power of storytelling versus fact telling. So it's a beautiful journey of using more stories. And Mary Kate, how can people connect with you and find out more about you and what you do?
Thanks for asking. You can jump on my website, which is just marykategulick.com. Or if you want to chat with me immediately, you hop into my Facebook group. It's called The Real Deal Experts Creating Content. And it's a great group of super nerds who really, really know their stuff and who just want to learn how to better get that teaching out into the world through compelling content.
Awesome. Is there anything you were hoping I would ask you today and we completely missed it?
You asked me everything, but I will say that it was just such a pleasure to talk to you, because it's from one content creator to another. You're someone who has been really consistent, and you are you're kind of an OG in the podcast world. So I just really enjoyed having a chance to chat with you a little bit and talk content.
It was my real pleasure. And yes, what you say about consistency, it's I believe in the power of it, because it compounds. You might not see the effects of it, and it might take years before you see it, but when you see it, it's quite big, because it has built up under the surface, so it sprouts quickly.
And there's nothing sexy about it either. That's the thing. I feel like people are just like, oh, consistency. And it's like, yeah, man, Do the thing, do it over and over again. That's why we don't spread ourselves thin. We do the thing and do over and over and over again.
I think it's up to us to see the sexiness in it. It's not
Yes.
sexy on its own, but it's up to us to appreciate it for what it is, because that's the journey.
Yeah. And the result is sexy.
Absolutely. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you today, Mary-Kate, and I believe there were some really valuable information that you shared. I want to wish you all the very best in your life and in your business. Any last parting words?
Don't be afraid. And I'll take that back. You're going to be afraid. Do it anyway. The creation of digital content for your business means you are putting yourself out in the world. It means people are going to see you. It means some people might not like it. What is the worst that could happen? At the end of the day, you will still have yourself, you will still have your business, and you will still have your expertise. So put it out in the world.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and rate Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts, and also share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to become part of an exclusive community, gain access to unique content, and at the same time support this podcast, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpat. If you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. Again, the link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/pdmgroup. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in,